The war on Kalos 4 had lasted 3 years, and humanity was losing ground with each passing month. I was just a Scout Corporal Marcus Webb, assigned to the frozen northern trenches where the ice never melted and the wind cut through armor like a blade. My tent was the only light for kilometers, a tiny orange glow in the endless white night that stretched across the tundra. I'd been alone for 2 weeks. Supply drops were delayed. Communications were spotty. The cold was my only constant companion, seeping into my bones despite the thermal generator humming in the corner. I'd resigned myself to another sleepless night, listening to the howl of wind across the ice fields. When I heard them, soft footsteps crunching through the snow outside, my hand moved instinctively to the pulse rifle beside my sleeping bag. Every nerve in my body went taut. Patrols weren't supposed to come this far north. Neither side wanted this frozen hellscape badly enough to fight over it. Then came the voice. "Are you alone in there?" It was low and feminine, smooth as silk sliding over glass, with a melodic quality that made my chest tighten. That voice belonged to no human. I'd heard recordings during briefings. The Eleutheri language was musical, almost hypnotic. But hearing it spoken so close, so intimately, sent a chill down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold. I didn't answer. My finger hovered over the rifle's trigger guard. The tent flap opened anyway, and she stepped inside. She was tall, nearly 6.5 feet, and clad in silver armor that seemed to drink in the lamplight and reflect it back in prismatic waves. But it was her face that stole my breath. High, elegant cheekbones, full lips the color of twilight, blonde hair that fell past her shoulders like liquid gold, and her skin navy blue, deep and rich as the ocean at midnight, seeming to glow faintly in the dim light. Her eyes were the most striking feature, violet irises that held an intensity I'd never seen before. Ringed with silver that caught the light like stars, she looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something unexpected in those alien eyes: exhaustion, the kind of bone-deep weariness that came from seeing too much death, carrying too much weight. Then, without a word, she reached up and began unclasping her battle plates. The shoulder guards came off first, hitting the frozen ground with a heavy thud that echoed in the small space. Then the chest plate, revealing the curve of her form beneath. The greaves followed, piece by piece, until she stood before me in nothing but a thin black undersuit that clung to every line of her body. She was unarmed, vulnerable, and the most dangerous thing I'd ever seen. Why? I finally managed, my voice rough from disuse. She stepped closer, and I could feel the warmth radiating from her body. Eleutheri ran several degrees hotter than humans. Because, she whispered, I needed to know if humanity was worth saving. My rifle had fallen away from my grip at some point, forgotten on the sleeping bag. She knelt slowly, gracefully, until we were at eye level. This close, I could see the subtle patterns in her navy blue skin, faint, bioluminescent markings that traced along her cheekbones and down her neck, pulsing gently with her heartbeat. "You've been watching me," I said. It wasn't a question. A slight smile curved her lips. "For 17 days. You patrol the same route every morning. You check the old bunkers every 3rd day. You talk to yourself when you think no one can hear." Her voice carried a gentle humor that somehow made the invasion of privacy feel less threatening. "You sing human songs badly." Despite everything, I felt heat rise to my face. "You speak our language." "I speak 7 languages," she replied, settling back on her heels. "It's required for someone of my position. I am Lyri, daughter of High Commander Severine of the Eleutheri Sovereignty, 3rd in line to the cerulean throne. A princess. I'd let an enemy princess into my tent, and she disarmed herself. The absurdity of it made my head spin. "Why are you really here?" I asked. Lyri's expression grew serious, the faint luminescence in her markings dimming slightly. I've watched you for weeks, Marcus Webb. She knew my name, of course she did. I've watched you fight like you have nothing left to lose. But I've also watched you spare the wounded who couldn't defend themselves. I've watched you bury our dead when you could have left them to freeze. You marked their graves with their battalion symbols so their families might find them someday. She reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and traced the scar across my cheek, a plasma burn from last winter's offensive that had nearly cost me my left eye. I've never seen a human do that, she continued, her touch feather-light and impossibly warm. In 3 years of war, I've seen your kind fight with desperation and fury. But compassion? She shook her head, blonde hair catching the lamplight. That I had not seen. We're not all monsters, I said quietly. Neither are we. Her violet eyes held mine. But this war is making us into them. I'm tired, Marcus. I'm tired of killing. I'm tired of watching my sisters in arms fall to human bullets. I'm tired of issuing orders that send soldiers, yours and mine, to their deaths. Her voice cracked slightly. And I'm tired of being alone in the dark, wondering if there's anything left worth fighting for. I stared at her. This impossible woman who'd crossed enemy lines to confess her doubts to a lonely scout. Outside, the wind howled like the ghosts of everyone we'd lost. Inside, something fundamental shifted between us. What do you want from me? I whispered. Larry took my hand and placed it over her heart. I could feel it racing beneath my palm, the heat of her skin seeping through the thin undersuit. If tonight is all we have, she said softly, let it be real. No armor. No ranks. No war. Just you and me, two people who've forgotten what it means to be anything other than soldiers. I should have pushed her away. Should have called for backup, taken her prisoner, been the soldier I'd been trained to be. But looking into those violet eyes, seeing my own loneliness reflected back at me, I found I couldn't. Instead, I shifted on the sleeping bag, making room. She moved to sit beside me, and I noticed she was trembling, whether from cold, fear, or something else. I couldn't tell. You're shaking, I said. I'm terrified, she admitted with disarming honesty. I've faced plasma cannons and orbital bombardments without flinching. But this? She gestured between us. Choosing to trust. Choosing to be vulnerable. This is the bravest thing I've ever done. I reached for the thermal blanket and draped it around her shoulders. She leaned into me, and the contact sent electricity racing through my nerves. Her warmth was incredible, like sitting next to a living furnace, and I realized how cold I'd been for weeks. Tell me about your world, I said softly. Not the war. Before all this, Lyrie's eyes grew distant, nostalgic. Elith Prime is beautiful. Our cities are built into the sides of crystal mountains that sing when the wind blows through them. The oceans are bioluminescent at night. You can see the waves glowing from space. Her voice held such longing it made my chest ache. I had gardens there. I would spend hours among the starflowers, studying xenobotany. I was going to be a scholar before ... double quotes she trailed off. Before the war chose you instead, I finished. She nodded, blonde hair brushing against my shoulder. What about you? What did you dream of before you became a soldier? Architecture, I said, surprising myself. I hadn't talked about this in years. I wanted to design buildings that could make people feel safe, create spaces where families could build memories. I laughed bitterly. Now I just blow things up. Lyrie turned to face me fully, her hand coming up to cup my jaw. Her navy blue skin looked almost purple in the lamplight, the bioluminescent markings pulsing gently. Then we both lost ourselves to this war. Maybe we can find ourselves again, I whispered. Together. She leaned in slowly, giving me every chance to pull away. When our lips met, it was gentle at first, tentative and questioning. Her lips were warmer than I'd expected, softer, and she tasted like something sweet and foreign I couldn't name. The kiss deepened, and I felt 3 years of loneliness and fear and desperation pour into it. My hands found her waist, feeling the curve of her through the thin undersuit. She pressed closer, her fingers threading through my hair, and a small sound escaped her throat that made my heart race. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, her bioluminescent markings were glowing brighter, pulsing in time with her rapid heartbeat. "I've dreamed of this," she confessed breathlessly. "Watching you from the ridge, imagining what it might be like if circumstances were different. If we were just two people meeting under better stars." "We are just two people," I said, pulling her closer. "Right here, right now, the war doesn't exist." She smiled a real, genuine smile that transformed her face and kissed me again. We lay together on the sleeping bag, wrapped in thermal blankets and each other's warmth. Lyrie's head rested on my chest, her blonde hair spilling across my shoulder like silk. I traced the bioluminescent patterns on her skin, fascinated by how they responded to my touch, glowing brighter wherever my fingers traveled. "Does that tickle?" I asked as she shivered under my exploration. "No," she breathed. "It's sensitive. The markings are connected to our nervous system. Touch affects them." She turned her face up to mine, violet eyes dark with emotion. "Only someone we trust is allowed to touch them. It's considered intimate among my people." "I'm honored," I whispered, and meant it. She shifted, straddling my lap, and I could feel every inch of where our bodies connected. Her hands framed my face as she looked down at me with an intensity that stole my breath. "I want you to know something," she said seriously. "When I walked into this tent tonight, I didn't know what I would find. But I hoped," her voice caught, "I hoped I would find someone who could see past the enemy insignia. Someone who could look at me and see Lyrie, not just an Eleutheri warrior." I sat up, keeping her in my lap, our faces inches apart. "I see you," I said firmly. "I see someone who's strong enough to walk away from a war she doesn't believe in. Someone brave enough to show vulnerability to a stranger. I see someone beautiful and complicated and real." Tears gathered in her eyes, luminescent, glowing faintly in the dim light. "No one has ever." She kissed me fiercely, desperately, and I felt the wetness of her tears on my face. We moved together slowly, carefully, learning each other's bodies with reverent touches. I mapped every curve, every line, discovering that her skin was impossibly soft despite its alien appearance. She gasped when I kissed the hollow of her throat, her markings flaring bright. Her hands explored with equal curiosity, fingers tracing scars and muscles with a tenderness that made my heart ache. "You're beautiful," I murmured against her navy blue skin. "So beautiful it hurts to look at you." "You make me feel seen," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. "For the first time in 3 years, I feel like a person instead of a weapon." We made love slowly, gently, with the reverence of two souls who'd been lost and finally found something worth holding on to. Every touch was a question answered, every kiss a promise neither of us knew if we could keep. Her warmth enveloped me, her soft sounds of pleasure mixing with my own, creating a symphony that drowned out the howling wind outside. Afterward, we lay tangled together, her head on my chest again, listening to each other's heartbeats synchronize. "What happens when morning comes?" I asked quietly. Lyrie was silent for a long moment. "I go back to being the princess warrior. You go back to being the scout. We return to opposite sides of an impossible war." She pressed closer. "But tonight we're just Lyrie and Marcus. Just two people who found each other in the darkness." I held her tighter, wishing I could stop time. "I don't want to let you go." "Then don't," she whispered. "Not yet. We still have a few hours before dawn." I woke to the soft glow of pre-dawn light filtering through the tent. Lyrie was already awake, propped on one elbow, watching me with an expression so tender it made my chest tighten. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi yourself." I reached up to tuck a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. In the growing light, I could see the intricate patterns of her bioluminescent markings more clearly. They formed constellations across her navy blue skin, like a map of stars. "I've been thinking," Leary said, tracing circles on my chest. "This war started over a misunderstanding. Both our peoples thought the other was hostile. But what if—" She looked up at me. "What if there were others like us? Soldiers on both sides who are tired of fighting, who could see past the differences. You think we could stop this?" I asked. "I think we have to try." Her voice grew stronger. "I have the authority to propose peace talks. My father will listen to me, even if he disagrees. But I need you to trust me. I need you to speak for humanity, to show them that not all humans are the enemy that propaganda makes them out to be." It was an impossible ask. Treason, probably. Definitely career suicide. But looking at her, this woman who'd risked everything to reach across the void between our peoples, I found I couldn't say no. "What do you need me to do?" Relief and hope lit up her features. "Come with me. Today. We'll go to the neutral zone, trigger the first contact protocols. Together, we can show both sides that peace is possible. They'll think I've defected, or that you've compromised me. Let them think what they want." She cupped my face in both hands. "Last night, you asked me what happens when morning comes. This is what happens, Marcus. We choose. We choose to be brave. We choose to believe that love and understanding can be stronger than fear and hatred." The word love hung in the air between us, unacknowledged but impossible to ignore. "You barely know me," I said quietly. "I know enough." She kissed me softly. "I know you bury the enemy dead. I know you sing off-key to keep yourself company. I know you dreamed of building homes instead of destroying them. I know that when you held me last night, you made me feel safe for the first time since this war began." Her violet eyes shimmered. "That's enough for me to believe in you. Is it enough for you to believe in me?" I thought about the 3 years of fighting, the friends I'd lost, the hollow feeling that had become my constant companion. Then I thought about last night, the warmth, the connection, the reminder that I was still human underneath the uniform. "Yes," I said. "It's enough." Lyrie's smile could have lit up the entire frozen tundra. She kissed me again, deep and full of promise. Before reluctantly pulling away to gather her armor, I watched as she reassembled herself piece by piece, transforming from the vulnerable woman I'd held all night back into the warrior princess. But when she looked at me, I could still see Lyrie underneath. "Are you ready?" she asked, extending her hand to me. I took it, feeling the warmth of her skin against mine. "Let's go change the stars." We stepped out into the dawn together. 3 days later, against all odds, the Elithuri fleet withdrew. Peace talks began. The war ended. They said it was politics. They said it was strategy. They said 2 young representatives had somehow bridged the gap between species and sparked a movement for peace that neither side could ignore, but I knew the truth. One night in a frozen tent, a warrior chose love over armor, vulnerability over strength, and trust over fear. She asked if I was alone, and in that moment, neither of us ever was again. Years later, when someone asked me how the war ended, I would think of navy blue skin glowing in lamplight, blonde hair spilling across my chest, and violet eyes that truly saw me when no one else could. That's how peace began. With 2 people who dared to reach across the void and touch.